The United States is still widely seen as the world's nuclear power leader. It operates more reactors than any other country. It pioneered the technology, and for decades, it set the rules everyone else followed. That belief did not collapse during a crisis. It collapsed quietly. In recent years, inside energy briefings and government reports, the tone began to change. Not with panic, not with headlines, but with numbers that stopped lining up, projections that no longer worked, and warnings that did not sound like competition, but like delay. Because while Washington was debating how to revive nuclear power, something else was happening elsewhere. Across China, reactor construction sites were not being announced. They were already active. Concrete poured, components installed, timelines moving forward, not slipping. At the same time, the U.S. Department of Energy was issuing a stock forecast. To keep up with demand driven by data centers, electric vehicles, and new industry, American power generation would need to grow dramatically within the next 2 decades. Yet under current plans, it would fall far short. That gap matters, because when energy supply falls behind demand, everything else slows down. Industry, technology, even national leverage. For years, the assumption was simple. The US might be slow, but it would catch up. It always does. But that assumption rests on one quiet question no one wanted to ask. What if the problem is not speed? What if the problem is that the system no longer knows how to build at all? This is the moment where the story narrows. Not to ideology, not to ambition, but to one concrete issue that explains the entire shift. Because if you understand why nuclear construction stalled in the United States, you understand how China pulled ahead without making noise, and why this race may already be farther along than most people realize. To understand how the United States ended up stuck, you have to go back to a moment when nuclear power looked unstoppable. In the early years of civilian nuclear energy, the US was not cautious. It was aggressive. Utilities planned hundreds of reactors. Construction moved fast. Nuclear was treated like any other piece of national infrastructure, not a political risk. Then the momentum broke. In 1979, a partial meltdown occurred at the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania. No one was killed. There was no measurable harm to the public. But the reaction mattered more than the outcome. Media coverage turned technical failure into existential threat. Public trust collapsed almost overnight. What followed was not a ban. It was something far more damaging. Layer by layer, new regulations were added. Each one made sense on its own. Together, they changed the economics of building nuclear plants entirely. Designs were altered mid-construction. Safety systems were duplicated. Approval timelines stretched from years into decades. A reactor that began construction in the 1970s did not come online until the 2010s. At that point, nuclear power stopped behaving like infrastructure and started behaving like a legal process. Projects were delayed, then abandoned. Costs climbed. Investors pulled back. Skilled construction teams dissolved because there was nothing left to build. Supply chains shrank. Mines closed. Fabrication capacity vanished quietly, one facility at a time. Europe followed the same path. After Chernobyl in 1986, public opinion hardened. Countries that once planned nuclear futures reversed course. Germany and Italy stepped away entirely. What had been a shared Western build-out became a shared retreat. By the time the fears settled, something critical had already been lost. Not the technology, not the knowledge, but the ability to repeat the process. Nuclear power did not fail in the West. The system that built it did. And that distinction becomes impossible to ignore once you look at what happened next. For a long time, America's nuclear numbers looked reassuring. 90-plus reactors, the largest fleet on Earth. Enough electricity to power entire regions. On paper, the United States still looked dominant. But those numbers hit a problem. Almost every one of those reactors came from the same era. Designed decades ago, approved under rules that no longer exist, built by an industrial base that has since faded. What mattered was not how many reactors were running. It was how many were being built. And here, the picture changed completely. By the late 1980s, new nuclear construction in the United States had slowed to a crawl. Through the 90s, nothing new broke ground. Through the 2000s, still nothing. For nearly 3 decades, the country that once planned hundreds of reactors built none from scratch. This was not because nuclear stopped working. Plants kept running safely. Output stayed high. But construction became a gamble no utility wanted to take. Every new project was treated as a one-off. New designs, new approvals, new contractors. No learning curve, no repetition, no cost reduction over time. As a result, timelines stretched beyond political terms. Budgets ballooned beyond what investors could justify. And when costs spiraled, blame shifted between regulators, utilities, and contractors, with no one able to fix the underlying issue. Nuclear power in the United States did not die in an accident. It stalled in slow motion. And the most dangerous part was that the country did not notice. Because as long as the light stayed on, it felt like leadership had been preserved. But leadership in energy is not about who built first. It is about who can still build now. That difference stayed invisible until demand began to surge again. The illusion of stability held as long as demand stayed predictable. For decades, electricity use in the United States grew slowly. Gains in efficiency offset population growth. Heavy industry moved overseas. The grid aged, but it held. Then the curve bent. Data centers began scaling faster than planners expected. Electric vehicles started shifting load from fuel to power. Semiconductor fabs returned. Artificial intelligence workloads pushed energy use into a new category entirely. Suddenly, the question was not whether the grid was clean enough. It was whether it was big enough. Internal forecasts turned blunt. To meet projected demand, U.S. power generation would need to expand by a massive margin within 2 decades. Yet when analysts looked at what was actually under construction, the gap was impossible to ignore. Under current plans, capacity growth would cover only a fraction of what was needed. This is where the story tightens. Because when every major energy source was examined at scale, only one option could realistically close that gap without exploding land use, emissions, or fuel imports: nuclear. And that is when a deeply uncomfortable realization surfaced. The United States still knew how to operate nuclear plants. It no longer knew how to build them, at least not at speed, not at scale, and not without losing control of cost and time. This was not a technology problem. It was a system problem, and it mattered because somewhere else, the same demand shock had been anticipated years earlier. Not as a crisis, as a certainty. That is where China enters the story, not as a sudden challenger, but as a country that made a different choice while the West was standing still. China did not enter nuclear power from a position of confidence. It entered from a position of constraint. By the late 1970s, China's industrial growth was accelerating fast. Coal was abundant, cheap, and reliable, but it came with 2 limits that could not be ignored: severe pollution and finite reserves. More importantly, China understood something the West had stopped pricing in. Energy demand was not going to stabilize. It was going to compound. So while nuclear power in the United States became a political liability, in China it became a planning assumption. China's first commercial reactor broke ground in the mid-1980s. By the time it connected to the grid, the US had already slowed new construction to a near halt. But China did not treat that first plant as a milestone. It treated it as a template. Instead of redesigning every project, China standardized. Instead of debating whether to proceed, it committed to repetition. Instead of separating regulators, builders, and suppliers, it aligned them under a single long-term objective. Then came the moment that was supposed to stop everyone. In 2011, Fukushima failed. Across the world, projects paused. Governments reassessed. Public fears surged again. In the United States, planned nuclear expansion collapsed almost instantly. Dozens of proposed plants were quietly shelved. China did not reverse course. It reviewed safety. It adjusted designs. And then it kept building. This is a critical break in the story. Because from that point forward, the nuclear race stopped being about technology or risk tolerance. It became about systems that could absorb shocks without freezing. While the West treated each accident as a reason to stop, China treated it as a reason to improve and continue. And over time, that difference compounded. Not in speeches, not in announcements, but in concrete, steel, and completed reactors. At first glance, the nuclear gap between China and the United States looked like a question of scale. China was building more. The US was not. That alone would have been concerning. But when analysts began comparing costs, the story shifted from worrying to alarming. In the United States, the price of building a nuclear reactor did something that should never happen in a mature industry. It went up with experience. Projects that once cost a fraction ballooned into multi-decade efforts with budgets that kept resetting upward. By the time recent US projects were finished, their cost per unit of power had climbed many times higher than earlier generations. China showed the opposite pattern. The more reactors it built, the cheaper they became. Not because of shortcuts, not because of weaker safety standards, but because China treated nuclear construction like manufacturing, not experimentation. Same designs, Same suppliers, same construction teams. Lessons carried forward instead of discarded. Every project fed the next one. This is how cost curves normally work in heavy industry. Aircraft, ships, vehicles, even solar panels followed this logic. Repetition lowers cost. Learning compounds. The surprise was not that China achieved this. The surprise was that the United States did not. For decades, each American reactor became a custom project. New rules, new designs, new approvals, no baseline to improve from, no memory in the system. And this is where the race quietly tilted. Because once cost and time stop improving, building stops being an option. It becomes a liability. Utilities walked away. Investors refused the risk. Skilled labor went elsewhere. And the system that once built reactors at scale forgot how to repeat itself. At this point, many still believe the gap could be closed with enough political will. That belief does not survive the next fact. And it changes how the entire story has to be understood. This is where the story stops being about policy and starts being about physics and steel. Building a nuclear reactor is not just a design problem. It requires a specific industrial backbone. Massive forgings, pressure vessels, ultra-thick steel components that only a handful of facilities on Earth can produce. Decades ago, the United States had that capacity. Today, it largely does not. As nuclear construction slowed, the factories that supported it shut down. Not dramatically, quietly. One contract lost, one order delayed, one facility repurposed. Over time, the country lost most of its ability to produce the largest reactor components domestically. That loss does not show up in headlines, but it defines what is possible. When recent U.S. nuclear projects finally moved forward, key components had to be sourced abroad. Timelines stretched, logistics became fragile, costs climbed further. Any disruption rippled through the entire project. China took the opposite path. It built the reactors. Then it built the factories that build the reactors. Forging, fabrication, fuel processing, construction firms, training pipelines. Everything aligned around one assumption. Nuclear was not a one-time push. It was a permanent capability. This is the hidden constraint most people miss. You cannot restart nuclear construction with announcements alone. You need physical capacity that takes years, sometimes decades, to rebuild. And while the United States debated how to finance the next plant, China was removing the bottlenecks that determine whether plants can be built at all. At this point, the idea that the US and China are simply moving at different speeds no longer holds. They are operating in different realities. One still has a complete pipeline from decision to completion. The other is trying to rebuild that pipeline from scratch. And that is before the story even reaches the next layer. Because China was not just building more of the same. It was moving ahead of the curve. By this point, the difference is no longer about technology. In the United States, nuclear revival depends on private capital, startups, and future breakthroughs. Billions are flowing into ideas that might work years from now. But nuclear power does not fit short timelines. It takes decades to approve, build, and pay back. That clashes with how the US system works. China does not face that constraint. When Beijing decides to build a reactor, financing is locked in, supply chains are aligned, and construction continues even when costs rise. The system does not pause. It absorbs the friction and keeps moving. That difference explains why recent US nuclear projects collapsed under delays and cost overruns, while China's did not. Not because the technology failed, but because the system could not tolerate long risk. By now, the idea that the US is just a few years behind no longer holds. The gap is structural. Factories were lost. Forging capacity disappeared. Skilled teams scattered. These are not things you restart with announcements. They take decades to rebuild, if they can be rebuilt at all. This is where the race stops looking competitive. China is not ahead because it invented better physics. It is ahead because it never stopped building. While the West debated nuclear as a political problem, China treated it as infrastructure. While accidents froze construction elsewhere, China adjusted and continued. While US projects became custom one-offs, China turned reactors into a repeatable process. That is why China can deploy advanced reactors while the US is still planning them. That is why it can test new fuel systems while the US rebuilds supply chains. And that is why scale, not ideas, now decides the outcome. The United States can still move, but it cannot rewind. Energy leadership does not belong to whoever announces the boldest plan. It belongs to whoever can build, repeat, and scale without stopping. Right now, only one system is doing that. And that is why this no longer feels like a race.